Welcome to a Calvinian architecture in my garden. Beautiful, still winter, late afternoon. This is the second octave, second chapter, isaura, verse 2 and 3. Verse 2. On the island of Patmos in the eastern Aegean, there's a cave in which it's said St. John wrote the book of Revelation, known also as the book of the Apocalypse. In English, apokalypsis means to reveal, literally to pull the veil back. Patmos's highest peak, as is the custom, is consecrated to the prophet Elias, said to have been the one closest to God. So the peak is known as Propheti Elias. On it, right at the top, there's a two-roomed monastery. It's my custom each time I visit Patmos to walk from the sea, from the port of Scala to Propheti Elias. It takes me a day. I often stop in the shade of a cypress tree or in an olive grove and listen to whatever is audible at that moment. Often, if I'm near the port, it's a faraway sound of children playing. Up higher, it's the sound of the sea. Most often, simply the wind in the trees. Once, the second time I walked there, I stopped at the top of a long winding path that leads right to the monastery's door. The path is laid with crushed stone and is most often used by shepherds. I rested there for a minute or two before the final climb, just looking out to the Aegean far below me. Suddenly I heard steps, distinct steps, crunching the stone path. I had a perfect view of the last 200 meters of the path. No one was coming, yet I could hear the steps beating out a rhythm in time towards me. Their cadence was distinct, recognizable. I knew them. It was then that I realized they were mine. I sat frozen by fear as they continued to beat out a rhythm in my head, and in the evening still air, they approached closer and went on right past me, beyond the bend and up to the monastery. Crows were beating their wings all round, crying their otherworldly cry. Wind was blowing, currents were creasing the surface of the water below me. It's then that I thought, for the first time, praise God for fear. For fear. Fear. Beautiful fear. God be praised for fear, I joyfully thought. For it's fear that reveals. That was the story of somewhere I wanted to live. This is a story of a journey. Verse 3. I started running when I was 15 years old, running long distances. I just run every night, 16 miles or so. I set the neighbourhood record of 53 laps of the block being bounded by Amos, Park, Pigden and Nicholson, and measuring about half a mile or so right round it. That was until Kerry ran 54. We just run and talk those days. We'd run to Mary Creek from Amos Street and then back again and just talk all the way. I can't remember what we said. One night I ran to St Kilda and back, straight down St Kilda Road. It was like seeing everything anew. It was a way of trying to change things, me or the world, not sure which. But it worked. for a little while, maybe half an hour, sometimes a few hours, on the odd occasion a day or so, and then you'd just run. You'd run further the next day, encouraged by its effectiveness. I used to see things I wouldn't see otherwise, people mostly, talking, arguing, looking over balustrades, into the river. Lots of people once used to look down into the Yarra from Princess Bridge. It was like a pastime. No one does that now. Everyone walks over the bridge. And that's what it's for anyway, sure. But the only people that look into the river are the ones taking photos. No one just looks to look. Well, lots did then. And into the railway yards, just watching the trains come in and out of Flinders Street. I used to walk down those little stairs onto the riverbank where the ferries were berthed. And it looked like, I imagined, the Seine would look like, or the Thames. Not the Tiber, though. The light wasn't right. And everything was too clean and neat. But I used to love sitting there and watching the rowers glide past, concentrating hard, while the cocks yelled out commands through a megaphone. Always used to remind me of the beautiful poem James Joyce wrote as he left Trieste, titled The Needle Boats at San Sabba, which ended, return no more, return no more, return no more. I'd walk to the river after Italian classes at University High on Saturday mornings. There was a kind of melancholy then on Saturdays. In Melbourne, because about midday, everything would go quiet after the hubbub of the morning. The city used to be packed on Saturday mornings, and Victoria Market too. Then at noon, it would just go quiet, and by 1 p.m, it was deserted. I'd love it then, to sit with the river in front of me, and the deserted city behind me. The bell of St. Paul's would play, and I'd think it was just for me. There was a haze in the air if it was autumn, and I'd sit there half smiling, feeling like this was my life. I remember that feeling. I'd sit there thinking this was my life. And it wasn't too bad. The sun was lukewarm, and it was easy to take comfort in the melancholia descending slowly on the city. Or did it rise from its foundations? Either way, you'd really feel it on Saturdays around noon. So, Melbourne then, and Melbourne now. Mildura then and Mildura now. Me then and me now. Thank you for listening. Tomorrow, second octave. Sound is keynote, is re. The colour is orange. It's a third chapter, and it's Maurilia tomorrow. I look forward to it. Until then.